Hi, everybody. This is Silvio Canto in Dallas, Texas on Wednesday, March the 16th, and welcome to our commentary. Wanted to do a little update on my Facebook page. Some of you, of course, have been following me for a long time, and we sure do appreciate that. I started a new page this week. It's called My View. And the reason I started this page, I had another one, but I wasn't totally happy with it. And this new one that we've started, and many of you have been invited, and thank you for accepting the invitation. This is going to be everything that I post on my blog, not just my political commentaries or the American Thinker articles, or when I post something down in Mexico that they publish for me down there, or Babalu over in Miami. Whatever I publish, it's all going to go to this new page. And of course, it will also have a lot of other things that I enjoy writing about, like Jerry Lewis or baseball or sports or music. So I think you're going to see all the posts out of my blog, and it'll be more of me, I guess, a representation of me. So not just politics. So everybody who was in the old page got an invitation to join the new page. It's free. All you got to do is click. You're even allowed to disagree with me if you like, as long as you don't get obnoxious and then we cut you off, because we like to have good debate. We don't like to just do obnoxious debates. But anyway, we love for people to disagree. Not everybody has to agree with what I'm saying. So that everybody who was on that other page got an invitation for the new page. And now we're going to start adding some new people as we look for new readers over the next few months. So that's what's happening. Thank you, as I said before, for liking the page, those of you who have already. And I hope you enjoy the new idea of having a different number of topics on this new page. It'll be exactly the same posts that I post over on my blog. And then, of course, it'll include the video cast that you're watching now. It will also include the audio podcast over at Blog Talk Radio. And, whatever else comes up, we'll put it on there as well. So again, thank you for accepting the invitation. And I hope you enjoy watching these things and reading these things as much as I enjoy bringing them to you. So that's the Facebook update. Wanted to let you know about that. Well, the president of Ukraine, let's start talking a little bit about politics here, or current events. The president of Ukraine was before the Congress. Look, this guy, every time you watch him, you're like really impressed with him. He's obviously a nationalist. He believes in his country, and he has a lot of guts to do what he's doing. And I support what they're doing in Ukraine. I just don't believe that it's in the best interest of the United States right now to get into that war directly, and that's what would happen if we enforce a no-fly zone. I have no problem with giving the people of Ukraine the arms, the weapons, the missiles, the airplanes, for them to do it. But I think it's a mistake to put the United States and Russia, face to face with each other over the air of Ukraine. I just don't think that that's in the interest of the United States, nor do I think, and this is the key, nor do I think that the American people support that. One of the things that I think Americans are saying, and not only they were saying this in the election of Donald Trump, but even in the political wins right now, I think a lot of people are saying we don't want to fight these wars anymore. We don't want to be a part of NATO if the NATO countries are not going to pay their share of the budgets and so on. So Americans are ready to defend the country, but they're a little bit hesitant to get involved in wars where there is no national interest. And one of the real problems of President Biden is he has not explained to the American people exactly what this is all about and why it matters that much to the United States. For example, he's supposed to be addressing the nation today in the morning. Well, you don't talk to the American people at 10:30 in the morning because nobody's watching TV at 10:30 in the morning. That's not when people are watching TV. They watch TV at night. So if you want to talk to the American people about something you're doing in Ukraine, you got to go to the Oval Office at 9 o'clock at night and speak to the American people. But for some reason, President Biden doesn't do that. And you can speculate whatever the reason is, but he's not doing it. So yes, I support the president of Ukraine. Yes, we should give him money and weapons and whatever they need, but no U.S. soldiers or no U.S. pilots, because that will bring about a direct conflict with Russia. And again, the American people don't want that. And frankly, I don't want that either. Our son was in the military a few years ago. And, I don't want somebody else's son going to Ukraine. I just don't think it's what matters to us at the moment. So we need to keep doing whatever we're doing. We need to keep putting force on Putin, but not American planes or American pilots over Ukraine. That's simply not the thing to do. Let me refer you to a post that I published today over at the American Thinker. This one's available in this page if you want to check it out. And it has to do with the Iran nuclear deal. As you probably know, at the moment, a delegation from the United States, it's in wherever they are, negotiating a brand new Iran nuclear deal. And we had one of these under President Obama, and then President Trump canceled it. And the reason that President Trump was able to cancel it is because the original President Obama deal was just an executive memo. It was not a treaty. And what I'm calling for in my new American Thinker post is that I think President Biden needs to submit this particular deal to the U.S. Senate so that we do it the constitutional way. The constitutional way is that the president negotiates the deal, he brings it back, presents it to the U.S. Senate, then the U.S. Senate does a lot of debating, and then they take a vote. And they either ratify the treaty or they don't ratify the treaty. And I think it would be a lot more serious for President Biden if he could walk into a meeting with Iran and say, look, my Senate is willing to ratify this. I think that would make a lot more sense. It would strengthen President Biden's negotiating position. But everybody who is negotiating with President Biden or his delegation knows that this is only an executive agreement. It's not a treaty, and that it will be challenged in the United States if President Biden tries to implement that deal, just as happened with the other Iran nuclear deal. So let's do it the constitutional way. Let's send it to the U.S. Senate for ratification. And I don't think the current deal would be ratified, but perhaps the Senate could make it better and then send it back to President Biden saying, we can do this. We can get 67 votes, but you got to make these changes. And again, that would make it a lot stronger. It would put President Biden in a stronger position to negotiate. The other thing about going to or using the Constitution the way it was written to do these deals is that I think it projects a seriousness. When you have these situations where Obama writes a deal or an executive memo and then Trump cancels that and now Biden wants to put it back on, that projects a lack of seriousness. I don't know how else to say it. The United States should deal on foreign policy on a serious way. And the founding fathers, the men who founded this country, created something called a treaty, which is the way these things are done. You do it by treaty, and then once the Senate approves the treaty, then the full weight of the United States is behind that treaty, and that's the best way to do these things. Let me say something. I have a post coming out tomorrow talking about St. Patrick's Day, of course. And by the way, speaking of St. Patrick's, we're going to do a St. Patrick's show with Leslie Eastman. We've done some of these before, and they're very entertaining. We talk about St. Patrick's and other issues of the day as well. And one of the things that I write about in my upcoming post is that the green movement, as we have known it, has pretty much collapsed in the United States. That this focus on the Biden administration to please the greenies, to somehow put climate change as the only reason or the one and only reason for doing business, has completely collapsed. Because the American people have seen eye to eye what the green movement is all about. Higher gasoline prices, higher inflation, higher food prices, higher electricity rates. And a lot of Americans are saying, wait a minute. Yes, the climate is changing. And yes, we should have, we should focus on other forms of energy, but not this way. Not when you take my gasoline from $2 to $4. And I just got a message from somebody yesterday that they're paying $7 in California. How in the world can you live when you go from $2 to $7 for a gallon? You cannot live that way. So I think the green movement is the greatest loser of all of this stuff that we are talking about. And I think once the Republicans take over the House and the Senate in November, I think you'll see the influence of the green movement reduced to practically zero. And then maybe we can have rational conversations about climate change. Instead of telling us that we've got 10 years to live, maybe we can have rational conversations where we can only not just look at climate change, but look at some of the cost and benefits of how to do it. I'm all for renewables. I'm all for, creating renewables or alternatives to oil, but we got to do it in a rational way. We're not doing it in a rational way right now. So I think the green movement has collapsed here in the United States. And my guess it's also going to happen in other countries. I think they just took things too far and didn't understand the damage that they were doing to the economy by the way they were doing things. Let's just say on this day in history, we remember West Point, the military academy, was founded on this day in 1802. It was a U.S. Army. It's a U.S. Army academy. And that's where all the great generals, Eisenhower, Robert E. Lee, Marshall, all the great generals of American history went through West Point. So we remember that it was on this day in 1802 that the Congress approved the act that would eventually create the West Point Academy, the cadets, as they like to call themselves. We also salute the state of Maine, all the way up there in the Atlantic coast, next to Canada. They came into the Union on this day in 1820, and they were number 23, I should say, on the way to number 50. I've never been to Maine, but all the pictures I've seen, all the photos I've seen, it's got to be one of the most beautiful places of North America. So I've got that on my list to one day go see the beautiful state of Maine. We also remember Jerry Lewis, the great comedian, who was born on this day in 1926. I'm a huge fan of Jerry Lewis. I love Jerry Lewis. But I got to tell you something. I like him a lot more with Dean Martin. I know he made a bunch of solo movies. I saw many of those movies. I didn't really like him. He was a lot better with Dean Martin. There was a chemistry between them that when you got Dean Martin and Jerry Lewis, it was like both of them were part of the movie and they complemented each other. When you had Jerry Lewis for the whole movie, it was maybe a little too much Jerry Lewis. So I loved Jerry Lewis. I absolutely love his movies, but with Dean Martin, those were my favorite ones. Of course, Jerry Lewis is also a great trivia question. His son, named Gary, had a pop band back in the 1960s, and they had that great song, This Diamond Ring, which was a #1 song back in the 60s. I think Gary's still around. I haven't checked with him lately, but Gary Lewis, the son of Jerry Lewis, who was a musician and a very popular musician back in the 1960s. And of course, we remember James Madison, President James Madison, who was born on this day in 1751. Here's the amazing thing to me when I was looking at his biography. He was born in 1751. So that means he was 25 years old when the Declaration of Independence was signed. He was 37, 38 when they were working on the U.S. Constitution. He was a critical player in the U.S. Constitution. And then, of course, he became the 4th president of the United States in, I think, 1808 or something like that. But the interesting thing about James Madison, when you remember from U.S. history class, I'm sure your history teacher told you about the First Lady, Dolly Madison, who during the War of 1812 protected a big picture, a big portrait of George Washington and saved it from being burned, when they burned the White House back in 1812. So Dolly Madison, we also remember her. And I wonder, I guess I'll have to ask one of my favorite history teachers, but I wonder if Dolly Madison was the first of the first ladies that the American people got to know. Could be. It could be because, first ladies were not that well known back then. whether it was Mrs. Washington. Now, I should say Abigail Adams, the wife of John Adams, and later the mother of John Quincy Adams. She was an amazing lady. I mean, she wrote and was very well spoken, but I don't know whether that many Americans knew that she was the first lady because they just didn't get publicity back then. But Dolly Madison, she got a lot of publicity, and I think maybe she was the first lady that the American people actually got to know back then. Well, thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. And if today is your birthday, happy birthday, and we'll see you the next time. This is Silvio Canto in Dallas,